There we are. Everybody wave. Woo! Everybody wave. Ah! That's awesome. Welcome, everybody. Don't be quiet now. Don't be quiet now. Now you'll freak me out if everybody's quiet. You guys hold that real quick. All right, babe. Let's do a sound check to make sure and tell me as soon as there's somebody watching live.
Everybody move the chairs.
Tell me as soon as somebody's watching live so we can do a mic check on me. 4. Anybody that's out there watching live, let's just real quick do a mic check so everybody knows what we're doing. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Man, this is awesome. This is to be surrounded by everybody on a day like this, to look back on what we did in 22 and to look forward to the awesome, incredible things that are coming in 23. I'm surrounded by friends, new and old, out there and in here and out there. We have some cool stuff going on later today. We're gonna do our best to keep to a timeline today, in all seriousness, because I can tell you right now, all of us could sit here and talk fishing well into the new year. We're gonna limit it to 2 hours today. We're gonna do our best to get questions from the audience, to get questions from the online live stream audience, and I have a very brief outline of events that we'd like to do. To start with, thanks to certain people that got us here to sit in here today. My friend Chuck Orlando, right there in the Blue Awakening Angler shirt. The pier is Chuck's, and it's beautiful in here. He's done an amazing job. They do weddings and parties and stuff, and thank you for basically opening his home to all of us to come hang out for today. I think we're gonna real quick go around and have everybody introduce themselves. Everybody that's sitting up here today, and there's some that weren't able to make it, fished with me on camera this year, so most everybody out there and in here already knows everybody. But let's start with Craig. Take the mic and make sure we get it up so everybody hears, because, yep. And I'll show you one other thing. That little mic, guys, that's going to our live stream, and the big mic is going for in here. So we have to make sure that we talk into it. I'm naturally loud, my wife says. So I don't have a problem. I don't really need a microphone.
We all fish with you.
I have a big mouth. I'm sorry. Craig, please.
Sure. My name is Craig Sleeman. I'm a resident of Victor, New York. I had an opportunity to fish back this year and also fish with Mike on the National Walleye Tour, and had a great season. Finished in the top 10 in the entire country, and finished strong, and also made the top 25 All-American team at the NTC. So super excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Craig. Thank
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Uriba. I'm from Phoenix, New York. I'm the owner of I1 Baits and the 5-0 Charter Co. Known of Matt for years. I used to be a customer of his over at the River Rat, and we hooked up this spring to talk about fishing, and it's been one of them whirlwind kind of years, but we'll get back to that.
you. The maker of the best walleye bait I've fished. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in this room. Well, I shouldn't say. I love these baits. I got in trouble once for saying somebody had the best pizza, but I don't say that stuff anymore.
He's here.
Yes, I know.
Terry Wicks, live here in Burton, Muskrat Bay, South Shore of Oneida Lake. Been a resident there all my life. Fished all around, mostly walleye, perch. Got a place for the last 16 years up on the St. Lawrence River, so I do a lot of fishing up on that part of the water during the summertime. And
What's your big target up there?
Mostly walleye, perch.
Big walleye.
Big walleye. Yeah.
Big
Yep.
river walleyes up there, 30 inches.
Yep. Try to get the 30s.
You're a pro staff for JT?
Yes, I am. Yep. Yep.
JT Outdoors?
JT Outdoor Products, ice rods.
They make ice rods, they make open water rods.
Yep.
So more to come on that. Thanks, Terry.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Todd Sheltra. I reside in Altmar, New York, and I have a charter service called Strike Zone Charters that I own with my brother. And we also guide on the rivers in the spring and fall.
Todd and I, so the brief history is this YouTube channel has been going for 3 years. Courtney and I have been doing it. It wasn't until this spring that it really exploded like it is now, but through those early 2 seasons, those first 2 years, I don't want this to sound funny, but we put out some really great videos that no one knew about, so nobody goes and watch. You can't watch something that you don't know about. But in a lot of those first 2 seasons, we did a lot of stuff, Todd and I together, and the backstory of that is that Todd and I have known each other since we were kids. I mean, I say kids, like in our early 20s.
Yep.
And I worked for Todd doing drift boat trips. We were on the back of the same charter boat for 4 seasons together, spent more time with each other than we did with our own wives at the time. And you're welcome, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome. You don't have to owe me anything now, you're welcome. So, I mean, him and I have been through, we survived a water spout on Lake Ontario that chased us across with a boat that could go about 12 miles an hour with a tailwind. We survived. We've done it all. We've caught massive, we caught a coho 2 days after they broke the all tackle world record. It was only 2.5 pounds off that record. We didn't even know what it was that day until we.
I remember you had me go look at it. And I'm like, just get it in the cooler, it's a salmon.
Oh, we were smashing them that day. We were right off the plant. I'll never forget it. And we were smashing fish that day. And I go, Todd, it didn't look right. If you don't know, like a Chinook, the inside of its mouth is black. It's all black. Its lips, its gums, everything. But a coho, it's black with a white ring around it. And I saw that and I knew what that meant, but I'm like, well, it's so big. It can't possibly be that. And I called him from the wheel. I'm like, dude, you got to come look at this. And he's like, holy, is it? And I thought, well, they just caught one 2 days ago, and it was like 29 pounds and change.
29.6.
Yeah, for a coho salmon, which,
And it wasn't a hybrid, it wasn't a mix of the two, which do exist.
Yeah.
It's actually, they had somebody come and check it.
Yeah, no, it was not. So, yeah, like that's the history with, there's a couple people on this panel that I go a long ways back with. And Todd and Tony Mufa behind me are the two of them. I mean, from the very 94, 95, when I started up there on the lake, when I came home, these were the guys that I got going with, and here we are all these years later. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Okay. How you doing? I'm Paul Messina. I live in Syracuse, New York. I own a restaurant downtown Syracuse called Pizza Regionale. When I'm not there making pizzas 78 hours a week, I'm on that lake. I have my boat out in Stanton, New York. My son Sam, who's in the crowd, who's in the audience today, and the rest of my family. I fished with Matt a couple of times, and we had a great time out of it.
Yeah, Sammy, come up next to Dad. Sammy was on camera this year. He should absolutely be up here with us. Yeah, we did. Sammy, pull up a chair and sit right next to Dad. That's the Perch Pirate. The first and only catch and cook video I've done so far was the 3 of us. We went perch fishing. We went perch fishing, and Sammy declared himself our good luck charm, which he was. So if you remember that video, yeah, right on, buddy.
My name is Don Terry. Been on Oneida Lake my whole life. Helped run bait and tackle shop, or own boat rental and boat launch, and do a little bit of fishing.
So the funny story I tease Don all the time is the first time I met Don was this year, and I was out, and I don't remember the first time we talked if I was on my jet ski at that point or I was. My boat had broke down. I was fishing off my jet ski every morning, and And I look over and this guy's in an aluminum boat and he's standing there fishing and he's got like a red and black plaid shirt on. And he had the old hat that Al Linder used to wear that was black in front with the yellow in the back. And he's standing there like this, and I looked over and I'm like, holy shit, it's Al Linder. I'm like, man. And so I'm like, I gotta go talk to this guy, you know? And we went over and started shooting the bull, and every since, like every time I see and talk to Don, it's Al. You know, he looked just like him that day. He's like,
Matt, funny thing is, today's his birthday.
stop it.
I'm wearing a plaid shirt. Al Linder's birthday is today.
Happy birthday. Hey, listen, yeah, I'm sure he's watching. I'm sure he's watching. Right on, Al. Who in this room hasn't been taught, who is in this room hasn't learned something from Al Linder? I mean, from everything he did. I wouldn't be sitting up here, I don't think. I mean, yeah, and the best, probably still. Sorry. So,
Forget about Dennis back in my days.
oh, yeah. Remember when, okay, do you remember when those, who was the guy with the big weird safari hat? He used to come to Henniger or one of the city schools, and he would do in the old days when I was a kid, like Sam's age. And anybody that's local might remember this.
Al Harrison?
Who was it?
Was it Al Harrison? Al Harrison?
No, he was had a funny name, a little bit of a guy with a safari hat. He came into the gymnasium and they showed his movie. And back then it was an old film movie that he went on a safari or whatever. And I remember my grandpa taking us to see that kind of stuff. That in those days you didn't have all the stuff we have now, that's for sure. No YouTube channel, Sorry, Tony.
That's all right. Tony Delmore, live in Cicero, grew up on Oneida Lake my whole life. Messaged Matt this spring when I saw him on the jet ski, and I just felt horrible for him. 3-foot waves, heavy winds, a little bit of rain, so I said, I have a boat, would you like to fish? Finally got him out to fish, and we enjoyed every minute of it several times.
Tony and I went to high school together and hadn't seen each other or talked to each other in years. And all of a sudden, things come back together, which is wonderful. It's been a lot of fun, too. And
Yes.
It got me off my jet ski.
Very true.
Hi, my name is Don Birdie. I'm part of the Muskrat Bay Fishing Association, and I'm Tony Booth.
Is that a real thing?
Been fishing quite a while now. I used to think I liked baseball more than fishing, but I definitely like fishing more than baseball. And came across Matt this summer fishing in front of my house and pick up a show every now and then. And kind of like, who's this weirdo out there? And then his boat broke. Actually, it was before his boat broke down. We saw him out in the just waving to each other, saying hi, started talking, and then the boat broke down and we started fishing together. And it's been one whirlwind all summer long. It's been great, had a great time, and
We've had some fun days.
we've had some thrashing days, yeah.
So my personal best walleye was when Don and John Burrows and I went up to the St. Lawrence River. And I've guided all those years in Oswego in the old days, and I've caught monster walleyes for clients in double digits. But I'd never actually caught one of them. And we went up jigging up to the St. Lawrence up where Terry is. And that first night, we both got one. John Burrows caught a lot of it. John Burrows is watching, so if you see him comment on this, don't let him say anything that's not true. And we have video proof that shows him. I said, John, put the light down and net that fish. And he goes, huh? And he's doing one of these, and he's still holding the light as opposed to putting it down. And he goes, and he pokes at it like Mike likes to do when he goes to net my fish. And then he's going like this, or Todd has done that multiple times to my fish. He's like, get off there, And you're not going to keep him anyway. So yeah, that was, and then this fall we had a smasher day out there. I still haven't finished editing those videos, but we had a smasher day. 30 plus keeper walleyes. That not to mention shorts and misses and throwbacks. So we've had some good fishing this year together.
Good morning, everybody. Captain Tony Buffa.
Thank you. A lot of people
That's
have
how we
really
got
helped
there.
me along through this journey that I've had this past 47 years. 47 years, and looking forward to my 48th. That'll happen this April when Freemax gets me back in the water. I exclusively fish Oneida now. For 44 of those years, I fished Lake Ontario prior to exclusively fishing Oneida now. I retired from the Lake Ontario scene in the 20 season, COVID season. So since then, I didn't fish the lake at all. Sold the boat at the end of that season and concentrated now on Oneida, which is very close to me, dear to me. It's where it all began, to tell the truth. I live right there, 5 minutes from my boat. It's a very easy journey to get to the boat, to get back home. And it keeps me going.
What's your earliest fishing memory, personally, on that lake? Because you grew up on the north side, right?
Yeah, I grew up in on North Salina Street in the city of Syracuse. But I came from a family that had a bunch of uncles that used to love to fish. And I caught my first fish when I was 7 years old on a hand line and a bobber. Just winding it up, throwing it out, put a worm on it, caught a sunfish at Green Lakes and said, I think I like this. And then to couple that with Saturday mornings. Saturday morning was like Sunday morning church to me. Gadabout Gaddis, the flying fisherman, had probably the only fishing program on TV back when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I would watch that every Saturday morning. And he had a float plane. And he would take that float plane and settle in somewhere in the United States, fish for different species of fish. And I made the decision right then and there. I said, someday I'm going to do something like that. So along with that, I have another career. I taught mathematics both in high school and at the college level. So I pursued that career, but once I got to the college level, I had like the schedule from heaven. I worked Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, had summers off, and it allowed me to start the charter business and to fish on those days when I was not in the classroom. So.
And you had both boats going at those days. You had the Oswego boat and down here going.
Yeah, I had both boats going. I had the career up at the college going, and been a great life. I feel privileged. If I had to do anything over again, it wouldn't change a bit. And I thank a lot of people along the way for supporting my endeavors. I said enough already.
My favorite, well, Tony and I met. I came home from the military, from the Army in '94, and I kind of bummed around the area, and I found myself, of all places, living in a fishing lodge up in Pulaski. And I started fishing the river and whatnot, and not really doing much of anything. And that following spring, it was spring of '95, I'm like, well, maybe I'll go see a couple guys I'd met, said, go see if you can get a job as a first mate somewhere on one of the boats. And so I went to every marina and walked around until I saw people on the boat and be like, hi, and introduce myself. And I knew how to fish, and I fished Ontario before. Growing up as a kid, my uncle and my grandfather had a boat, and we downrigger fished out there when it was just starting. So another one, when we talk about Gaddis and Al Linder, when I was a kid, Bill Safe too, senior, was on WCNY, Rod and Reel. I'd never seen anybody catch a fish that big, and it even perked my Gramps' interest, who grew up out here. But I kept going up and down the boats, and I come across Tony, and he said, sure, I was fresh out of the military, I still had a buzz cut, and he goes, I'll give you a job. He said, but you gotta stop calling me sir. He goes, just call me Tony. I said, yes, sir, I won't. I mean, Tony, typical. And it's funny. This is not the best story, really. in those days, I was helping with the night walleye trips in Oswego. And God, I think it was the first trip I was ever supposed to do. I was supposed to be there at midnight. And I woke up at my house in Central Square, and it was about 11:40. And there was no way I was making it to Oswego in 10 minutes. And I called him, and he said, well, just come get your stuff in the morning. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can do about it. And I go up there the next morning and meet him, and I don't even know if you can explain how gracious someone is when they don't have to be, how much it affects you, or it affected me. And I got there, and I said, I'm very sorry. I went downstairs and grabbed my bag, and I headed back to my truck, and I got up on the dock, and he goes, was that it? And I turned around and I looked at him, and I'm like, wow, I screwed up. And he goes, be here tonight at midnight. He goes, there'll never be a second time. I don't think I've ever been late for a fishing trip with anybody ever.
Yeah, I hired him and fired him in the same day.
And I have never been late since for anything ever. And everybody knows if you're gonna fish with me, I'll tell you early, and I believe in early. And everybody's like, really? I go, yeah. But that's my thing, and everybody that goes with me knows we're going early and to be on time. I say that, so that started a friendship that's been every day since, you know.
I'll never forget that night. Wally, who's the harbor master at Freemax, it was a charter with him and some of his friends, and Wally is a great fisherman, so he doubled as a client and a mate that night.
No, that was the first and last for me. But
Have you lived that down a while yet?
Pardon?
Have you lived that down a while yet? He likes to hang on to stuff, that guy.
There you go.
who's next back there, John?
Yeah, my name's John Lutz. I run Guide on the Side guide service. I mostly fish the Salmon River. I do drift boat trips for salmon, trout, and steelhead. And I fish from basically fall all the way through until May. I don't stop in the wintertime. I fish all the way through. And in the summertime, I like to fish the Finger Lakes. I do lake trout jigging trips down there. I used to own a bait and tackle shop in Little Texas, right on the Mexico State boat launch. And I've pretty much been in this industry since the early 2000s.
So John and I met this year, and he reached out to me and messaged me and said, you know, and I really enjoy what you're doing. He goes, and thank you, and you know, is there anything I could do to help, or can I, you know, and this was months ago, and then fall fishing got good. He's in salmon season. I was out here fishing for walleyes, and we kind of stopped talking, you know, through social media. And then he called me a couple weeks ago and said, you know, hey, let's go do something. And we went up to Oswego, and we had a lot of fun. You know, we caught some fish, and we got a chance to meet. And John generously, and you'll see the white ticket raffle over here, John has donated a drift boat trip on the Salmon or Oswego River to be raffled off today. So they're $10 a ticket, and you will not, I can tell you, just from as soon as I walked up and met John, the very first thing I'm a fish head, you know, I'm looking, and I look over the whole rig, and he's got a beautiful new Stealthcraft drift boat, top of the line gear all the way through it. And not that, I don't want to say that in a funny way, not that you need top of the line gear for anything, but when you see somebody that's doing it at a professional level, and they put out the spread of really high-end equipment for their clients to use, you already know kind of what you're getting into at that moment. And it would be no different if you showed up and your guide is in complete disarray. This was the opposite of that. And some people, when you fish with them, you know, and everybody up here can attest, we all clicked. If we wouldn't have fished together. And that's you learn a lot about somebody when you go and sit in a boat with them for a couple, 4 or 5 hours, you know? So that's how John and I met. And John, I want to thank you so much, my friend, for the donation, that generous donation. And I hope everybody gets a chance, or a couple chances, because if you've never done it, to go down the river, it doesn't matter which river, in a drift boat, it's a great experience alone. but the amount of incredible world-class fishing that we have here and within an hour radius of us right now is really, we owe it to ourselves as fishermen to get out and do more of other things. So, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Scott?
I'm Scott Piana. I think I grew up with a fishing pole in my hand. We used to live in Cicero, swamp behind my house, pond every day. My father and Tony Booth were best friends. Kind of got me into salmon fishing. I had a charter boat up in Oswego for 10 years. I put that away for the kids. You miss a lot. The stuff these guys do in the charter boats, you know, to earn a living is remarkable. The amount of time that they spend, if you're not working on the boat, you're fishing the boat, it's 16, 18 hours a day, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I just found it, you know, I was missing a lot, so I stopped doing that. Saw Matt's videos on Facebook, used to see him out on the boat, give him the, keep your tip up on the way by. Then his boat broke, I contacted him, he didn't fish with me till later on in the season, but I used to see him buzzing by that jet ski, his hair. It was crazy. And so most of the friends I have, I've met fishing. Fishing is a great thing to do together. Even before the guys here, I've met fishing. That's about it.
Thanks, buddy.
Hi. Hi, my name is Jim Parker. I am from Rochester, New York. I met Matt in the summer when I won the contest for the 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. The three of us went fishing together, you and Mike and I.
And I mean, we just had a great time. We gelled really well.
We caught a huge amount of 4 to 6 inch perch that day.
Yeah. No, they were walleyes.
We caught a bunch of those too. Yeah.
I think the perch was the biggest one we had.
Nothing was the best.
Right. Mike
We spared no expense.
Mike showed me how much of a professional you could be. But, you know, I don't fish Oneida like these guys do because I'm an hour and a half away. In fact, that's how I found you, was I was just looking at videos, and then, you know, I saw the channel, and I saw your message, and it was, you know, it just attracted me, and then it started from there. But, you know, I spent, and it's kind of funny when I talk about the movies, because I grew up fishing everywhere, but when I was 15, I met John Novak, troutman at Charters in Ontario. And he did fishing shows with Ron and Al. So when I was 17 years old, I was doing fishing shows with the fishing group. And, you know, he was 17 years old, and, you know, he just had, he had clientele that was all, you know, like Danny Wagner. And in fact, I was on that boat the first day that Danny never fished for salmon before on Lake Ontario. Never caught one. So, you know, Pop's screaming, and he turns to me and he goes, "What do I do?" And I'm 17 years old, and I'm like, Danny Wagner is asking me what to do. So I said, just hang on. When he stops screaming, you start reeling.
Yep.
You know, he brings me to the boat, I met him, and it was like a kidney pain story.
When he stops,
So,
you start.
That's it. So
Fast.
yeah. So you know, there's so many stories I have for the listeners. It was a lot of fun. It goes so far back to when Jimmy used to just start learning how to do the camera work, and you know, he was young. So, you know, what I love to do is fish Niagara River. That's my favorite place to go. It's a fishery 365 days a year. There's always something there to catch.
And we're gonna do a video this year at some point, this
Yeah,
winter.
yeah.
Jim and I are gonna do a video together out there. I've fished the lower Niagara before, drift fished it for steelhead. I've never went out and jigged the bar. And that's something I've always wanted to do, go out and jig the Niagara bar for lake trout. You know, as a kid, that's something you hear talked about. And it's only 2 hours away.
Yeah.
It's not like it's 2 days away.
No, you're spending a whole day there.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't matter the weather, because it's not like the lake where it gets rough. The only thing you do have to keep track of is Lake Erie, because that's what, you know, feeds into it and keeps the mud.
If it's not rough, I'm not gonna be sure what to do. Like
Well, you can bring the jet ski.
Yeah. fish when it's not, blinding fog, or where's Tony? Where's Tony? And I didn't have my wind meter that day, but I wish I did, because I don't know, how hard was that wind?
45
It felt like this the whole day, like somebody was just, you'd go to lift your rod tip up to cast, and you had to force it into the wind, and it went far that way, but, you were like, man.
But my personal best on Niagara is a 12-pounder. So, I mean,
Walleye.
yeah, walleye. I mean, that's the fish one. They're, 8-pounders are not uncommon today. It's just phenomenal.
Do they run, I'll ask you guys real quick, do they run walleye tournaments in the Lower Niagara? Is that?
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Used to.
Used to, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Morey, and I don't have nearly the pedigree that the other people up here do. But I came up here for college from Connecticut in '87, and my first work-study job, the guy that I was going to be working for had a big map of the lake behind his desk, and he wasn't there yet, so I was staring at the map, and he came up behind me and said, "You like maps?" I said, "I like fishing." And Rob Jones, who turned out to be like a second father to me, passed, it'll be 2 years this April. That weekend brought me out. He lived on Ontario Avenue, so I guess we were fishing right out in front of the islands there. And I caught my first walleye, caught a really good sheep's head. I think everybody has stories of those. And just continued to fish all through college, and made the decision when I graduated that the water spoke to me. I'd grown up in Connecticut on the ocean, fishing for striped bass and bluefish with my dad, and working as a trap boy for the Remington Gun Club in Lordship, and so I was always around the water.
It must have been a cool gig.
Yeah, well, my dad shot ski competitively. He's won, international tournaments and such. So I've just always been around water, and there was something about the land and the water in this area that spoke to me on a really deep level, and I fell in love with the land. I fell in love with the place. And so I stayed. After I graduated, I went back, I became a teacher. I teach in Seneca Falls. We have a bass fishing club, high school bass fishing club. They've gone to the nationals 3 out of the last 4 years. They've done really well.
That's awesome. Let's plug it the whole way. So what school district, and does the club have a name?
Yes, they do. It's the Miners Academy Bass Fishing Club. We're the high school in Seneca Falls, New York.
Oh, very nice.
They've done tournaments here on Oneida, and can't really help them, but I've certainly let them know that, hey, in the last couple of weeks. And so that's helped them a lot.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
How many teams they have bass teams now?
There's actually a fair number in New York State. Yeah, there's probably 7 or 8 teams at every event. And now they opened it up this coming year. They're opening it up to like a regional-wide schedule. So they're not necessarily going to have just teams from New York that they're competing against. They'll have some from Pennsylvania, some from Ohio. So it's going to be
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they've got a really great system, a really great catch and release system, because a lot of the fishing they're doing is pre-season, where they have an app on their phone, and they get a picture of the fish, and they have a little scale thing, and the fish goes back in the water right away. They get the picture, they get the weight, the fish goes back in the water.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was, I liked that. I liked that, I met Matt this summer, like lots of people did, watching the videos and saying, "Who's this crazy guy in a jet ski? He's fishing on a jet ski?" And then I heard the story, and made some phone calls, realized he was probably in for the long haul, waiting for parts for that motor, and just out of the blue sent him a message and said, "Hey, come fishing with me." My wife will tell you, I'll talk to anybody. I'm not a shy person, and out of the blue, he's never met me before. He said, "Okay," and we clicked. I had a great time. I have a brand new boat this year, nice Crestliner Commander, and we had a great day. I caught
A wonderful platform to fish off of, yeah.
Yeah, and I caught what I think was the record bluegill pumpkin seed for the summer. With
Oh, that thing was
pumpkin seed.
huge.
Yeah, I almost couldn't get my hands around it.
I said it all year, that we'll have to do some sort of just pumpkin seed tournament one of these days, because we caught some monsters out there this year. Yeah, they're not sunfish, they're pumpkin seeds. Jake from State Farm, or Jake from Cornell. Jake from Cornell was supposed to be here with us, called me at 9 o'clock last night and said, dude, I can't make it. Something came up and with his family, and so Jake, we would have loved to talk lake with you, because that was, I don't know how many people out there like those segments with Jake. Yeah, it was fun to talk to him and get some scientific input, but, sorry.
That's quite all right.
I get off.
So that's how I met Matt, and like I said, I've been here since '87, and I fished Oneida, I fished Ontario, the Finger Lakes. I caught my personal best walleye out of Shimo this fall, like a 12-pounder.
Oh yeah,
so-
that's right, when you were out on the charter.
Yeah, it's safe.
Yeah.
What's that?
That was
So, you know,
awesome.
I've spent a lot of time on the water, but not quite the way these guys have.
Yeah. Everything's relative.
Yep.
Morning, my name's Eric Wisniewski. I'm from Kirkville, New York. And like a lot of these other guys up here, I live to fish. Fortunate to know Tony Pupa for probably at least 60% of my life. And I do a lot of fishing on the lake, and like everybody else, you know, I see Matt out at the lake with my partner, John Ladd. And give me a little tip up, keep your tip up a few times. And one thing to another, I met Scott also through Facebook, and we became real good friends. And
Yeah. Well, before you and I met, I'd seen your posts on Facebook.
Right.
And Eric's a perch hound. He can smell perch a mile away underwater. And so you want to catch perch, you follow him if you want, or he'll tell you, which is the beauty of it. He'll tell you, and that's what endeared Eric to me. Is it wasn't a big secret. I know more than you. I got it all figured out. It was, hey, what do you think about this? Let's do this, and we're both deadheads too. So we both listen to tunes all day, and so that was another connecting factor right there.
He's not real bad with the walleye either.
No, he's all right. He's all
I
right.
enjoy a lot of Lake Ontario, do a lot of trolling up on Lake Ontario for walleyes out of Henderson Harbor, Shimo Bay, St. Lawrence River. But Oneida is my definite first choice. And whether it's perch, sunfish, walleyes, carp, whatever, I'm in.
As long as it bites.
Right on. The tug is a drug.
They call him a whiz for the reason. If it has fins, he's gonna find it.
And they swim.
Yeah, giving everybody a round of applause up here is awesome. Thank you, and from my side of guys, thanks everybody for wanting to fish and for hanging out and being cool, you know. I'm down with this, and I thank all you guys. It made it a lot of fun this year to have people to fish with, and I like fishing alone. It gives me time to do and mess with other things, but it's nice to share boats with a lot of great people, and I'm super blessed this year that I've been able to do that.
Even if they're little ones.
You know, I still believe that things happen for a reason. Boat broke down for a reason. You know, and
I met a lot of people after my boat broke down, and they're all going, "Who is this dude out here in the jet ski?" You know, and why? And the answer to that was because I had no other choice.
We're thankful you weren't fishing on a jet ski in your thong.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. All right, so let's do real quick. We have two more things to get to. We're going to talk to Craig and Mike in a little more in depth. They both, and we were following them live during their run, but these guys both had a pretty historic run in the professional walleye tournament trail, and this guy right here won the Wednesday night trail championship out here on Oneida. So I'm gonna we're gonna talk about that for a minute shortly, but let's start with an audience question. Anybody here have a question for us collectively, or any of us let's take a couple questions here, and then babe, see if we can get a couple questions from online that we can touch on. It could be technical, it could be whatever. Anybody? Just anybody? Bueller? Bueller? Bob. Hold on. I don't know. I'm gonna give you a microphone, and I told myself I wasn't gonna do this. I don't know if I'm you. I know. You take the microphone and then we'll talk.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when the fishing gets slow, are you more likely to change colors or go to a different place?
That's a great question.
Show of hands.
Okay, so you've went 20 minutes without a bite? You're doing what? You're changing color? Hands?
If you're on fish, I'm changing.
Yeah.
That's true. If you would have started, if you had them going and then it stopped, that's one thing. There's a lot of different variables there, right? To me, moving is my last resort, honestly, especially if I know they're there. I don't know, what's everybody else's thought on that?
I always say, always biting something somewhere.
Yeah.
So you're gonna move, you're gonna
I'm gonna
move.
do a couple of certain color changes, and then I'm gonna move.
Burned
I
a lot
gotta
of my
make sure
gas
they're
this
not
year.
biting.
Did you burn a lot of my gas this year?
We didn't get that far, but,
No, I did all right.
Yeah, and and then too, like, how far is your move? Is it a,
Could be 100 feet.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Boof, you're famous for, I mean, you're.
I cannot fish an empty screen. If I'm on fish and they're stubborn, I don't like to waste a lot of time, but I will come back to those fish later on during that outing. Maybe they've changed their attitude at that point in time. But we all have our favorite handful of lures that we like to try, our favorite colors. You gotta have confidence in what you do. If that doesn't work, get out of Dodge, like Wizzy says. There's always fish somewhere that are biting. You gotta go find it.
Absolutely. That's a great question, Bob. Thank you. Anybody else? In the back.
That question with walleye, guys, when you go to a new body of water, what is your, like, if you have a fish there, what is the things you're looking for to start? Like, what's an area you're looking for on contour maps, like drop-offs, flats, like, what's your go-to?
So let's I should have given the mic.
New body of water.
So you're going to a new body of water. How do you break it down? Before I would even start and let anybody answer that, for me, I would say, what do I want to do when I get there? Like, or what is my thing? I'm a jigger. I'm a dirty jigger. I mean, so I'm jigging something. I'm either jigging a blade or t-shirt. I'm a bad boy, dirty jigger. So I like to fish blades, or even if it's a jigging wrap. So then maybe I would go and say, so I know I want to do that. I'm not going to throw my blades up into rocks. So then I would, if I find an area with a lot of rock bottom, and then that's what I want to do, then I'm gonna go find something else with a softer bottom, unless I own a blade bait company and throw them in the rocks purposely. Because they eat them up in there, but he
I throw
also.
them in the trees so everyone can see them and don't get the bite. So Dylan, I'll answer your question as best I can, and my answer would be that it's gonna be seasonal. I'm gonna track their movements where I think they should be. If it's summertime, they should be out in the mud flats eating mayflies and whatever accompanies the mayflies, I'm gonna be chasing them in the flats. If it's spring and we know it, I'm gonna be looking for that first drop off outside of a creek. I'll always be looking for a transition, whether it's sand rock, whether it's shell sand, whether it's muck, whether it's mud, whether it's hard rock. I'm gonna be looking for something. And then when the weeds pop, I know exactly where I'm gonna be. Or at least I think I'm gonna try. So that's my biggest question. I'm gonna look for them seasonally. That's my answer to that one.
Anybody else up here want to chime in on that?
And current.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed, around here anyway too, is especially in the fall, current makes a big difference. If you can find a spot that's got a little bit of current running through it, that seems to be productive for me. That's one of the things that I've looked for.
Current consolidates fish too, you know, wind current. If you're fishing anywhere out here right now, you know, within, I don't know, a mile of the bridge. You and I, when it was foggy that day, we were talking about that. How far does because they're sucking water out of the river right now through Cognoy. And so they're pulling 5 gates down here. So, I mean, they've been draining this lake now for a month. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know how far out that current goes, but if you're a fish, you can only go one way in current, and that's upstream. Because you can swim downstream, but you can't sit downstream, or you'll drown. That water can only go in one way. So current really does consolidate things if you're in a current situation. You said lake, but yeah, I mean, and nowadays too, breaking down new water has never been easier for all of us than between the extensive digital mapping you can look at and public knowledge that's shared on any bit of social media. It's much easier certainly than in the old days, you know. Boof, you got anything to chime in on that?
There's noticeable current on Oneida Lake, especially if it's windy that day or even the day after the wind. And you can detect that by just looking at your fish finder, especially if you're in the weed area. You can see the bend in the weeds. It's very noticeable. I like Mike said, it all depends what season you're in and where the fish will gather. You're looking for suspended fish, or you're looking for bottom-oriented fish. All of that comes into play as well. What's your favorite way to go after them? Do you like trolling? And if you like trolling, you can't be of one mindset. Get as many lines out as you can and different applications while you're deploying those things. Just not planer boards, bottom bouncers in conjunction with that, little divers. I love using that little 3.5 inch Lord Jensen diver. It's the #1 size. If you put a 15-foot lead on that and use 20-pound test 7-strand stainless steel wire, if you put out 60 feet of wire on a #1 setting, you're going to be somewhere between 20 and 25 feet down in that open water area. And I've caught more fish trolling with 2 of those, one off of the port side, one off of the starboard side. That single most presentation has been wonderful for me on fishing a controlled depth. If you want to get a little deeper, you get down to 30 feet, put 70 feet of wire out. It's a no-brainer. It's out of the way of everything else. And all your other applications, your lead core, your flat lines, you can run all of that. And that little diver is just, it's a fish catcher. So if you're looking for fish and you're in that trolling mode, the more you can cover in that water column, the better off you're going to be for yourself. And why are the fish suspended during that summer time of the year? It's because that's where all the bait is. It just lifts off the bottom that time of the year. It's all balled up. And, the more junk you can get out there, the better off it's going to be for you. So.
Could you repeat what that one lady used?
Repeat that, please.
Where they can use the most, the #1?
The lure. No, the diver.
Oh, my #1 lure?
Yes.
The diver, yes, no.
The Lord Jensen.
The Lord Jensen, that you just said.
The Lord Jensen diver.
Oh, the Dipsy diver?
Yeah, it's a Dipsy diver. Hang on a second.
Hold on, I got one. Hold on, I got one ready.
The #1 size.
What?
That's a good thing we're not talking about muskets.
Yeah, because, I mean, I carry a Dipsy diver around in my pocket with me, of course.
In his other pocket, he has challenge points.
Yeah.
And when you're
Like those
using
might have
this,
a pocket full of
you want a
blankets.
15 feet leader where your lure is going to attach in conjunction with the diver. And I use 12-pound fluorocarbon for that. And when the client reels this right up to the tip of the rod, there's no way you're going to reach out and get that fish. So as my client is reeling, I have them walk to the bow of the boat so that I can still stand at the stern, and I just tell them, you just keep reeling until I net that fish. So, pretty easy application to use.
That's awesome. We're gonna do a online, what do you? We're gonna do a quick online question, and I love this question for two reasons. It's Terry's wife, Rita, who's a heck of a fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
Heck of a fisherman. And so her question for everybody up here, guys, is she says, I want the expert's opinion on scent trails. Now, I'm assuming she means how far or how long you're thinking that added scent would stay on the lure? Or how long if you're trolling, how far back does that scent stay before it dissipates?
Yeah, I think ever since we've been fishing the last few years, she's been really big into the whole scent on baits and on lures and that. And we bought some stuff last year and tried, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, you go ahead, try that. And we were fishing the river, we were jigging the river up in St. Lawrence, and she outfished me that night. It was like 5-1. It was crazy, and I'm like,
We don't normally talk about stuff like that
No,
with
you got-
wives out fishing.
He's very confident.
You got lucky.
Yeah, we don't normally talk about wives out fishing husbands.
But she's done a lot of research on it and just has a lot of questions about it. And I always say I've never really fished scents and stuff, so I don't really know a whole lot about them. But I think where she's going with it, is if you use certain scents on stick baits or blade baits and stuff, how long does it last, and how effective is it to bring fish in?
Craig, you want to take that? You do a lot of trolling for walleyes, so.
Personally, we use a lot of scents in Lake Erie when we're trolling in cold water. I think it makes a little bit of a difference. Depends on, what application of scents. Are you talking about a squeeze bottle with a gel? Are you talking about dipping into a herring oil? And, I know salmon guys used to do that, quite regularly, but.
Jesus, we used to use bilge water out of the diesel.
Stick literally with a piece of cut bait.
Yeah,
we control the stuff and the scales will pop off and it loses its oil.
Yep.
So I used to open the hatch up and just stick it under the diesel motor.
Yep.
Pull it back out and run it.
Yep.
And it would get another half hour out of it.
Yep. And so we talk about scents, and now tell me, the first thing you said is in cold water.
So
why? I know why, but why?
Warm water.
Yeah, generally speaking, we're fishing a lot more live bait in warmer water.
Okay.
Personal, we control a lot of worm harnesses.
Yep.
Do a lot of inline, worm harness trolling. But for us, it's one more little factor, one more thing we have control over. Generally speaking, the scientific, answer to that's something for maybe a Cornell guy. Where that comes in and how long it lasts or how far a walleye can actually trail that scent. But for me, it's, as long as it's not impeding the action of the lure. Some guys load it up on the back, and this also happens to a lot of guys that like to custom paint their lures. Too much clear coat can impede the wobble of your lure.
Yeah.
So I really inspect, anybody that does custom painting for us, we really look them, in the eyes and we say, hey, it's got to be a certain way or it's going to change things. So, but if you can change that scent and give them one more thing to, either track them, cause a strike, and it's properly applied, we've had some really good success with scents and have outfished, trolling bites one side over another, scent, free versus added scent. So yes, it can make a difference. I don't have the answer why, but if it's something you can control and try, and it's something that you can, add to your arsenal, I would, highly suggest it. Again, Mike might have the answer for the cold water. You might have the answer for the cold water.
Well,
just
to
think
me,
it works a
it
little
was
better.
always because I assumed that colder water had a higher specific density, and so it holds those scent molecules together longer as opposed to warmer water, which by nature, it is more active because of temperature, and so it dissipates that scent quicker.
Yeah, let's go with that. Here's my deal on, here's my deal on scents is, I think that they're important, but I think the negative ones are the what's important. You wanna stay away from the gases, you wanna stay away from the suntan lotions, you wanna stay away from any of that stuff. You can't wash your baits with lemon scented Joy or one of the no scented bait, or no scented dish soap, and that's important. Anything that's, I don't know how WD-40 and diesel fuel works, it's the opposite of what I just said, but they seem to be, WD-40 seems to be like number one.
Yeah,
Lake
they-
Ontario's bait
Any
spray.
petroleum-based
Well, it's-
product has the same
So,
chemicals.
I, not something I do, it's something I hear about, and, the ones I do try and track was the old Mustang one with the pheromone, if I could get another scoop of that.
Ultralight.
If I could have another scoop of that, I'd die a happy man. It's gone. Closest one now is Lure Lipstick, a couple other ones.
Lure lipstick.
Um,
How could you go wrong with something like that? There's about 5 jokes right there that I want to though.
Is what it is, so, I say stay away from the negative stuff until you find a negative one that works. Diesel fuel and WD-40 being the two we're talking about.
When I have, depending on how I'm fishing with clients, if it's a technique where they're gonna be handling the lures, like if I'm back trolling with plugs in the river, or anytime that they're dealing with lures, I use scent. It's a cover scent.
Cover scent.
Not because I necessarily think that that fish is gonna let the thing go by and oh, it smells really good, or it's just in case my client has something on their hands that I don't know about.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
gonna repel them.
Yeah,
And,
I
you know-
would say the majority, although this fall, it's funny, this fall, I was gonna say the majority of my scent use has always been as a cover. But this fall, I started taking, the little tubes of Potski, I'm not sure you say that,
Yeah, that's
Potski.
good.
It's that fire gel they have, so I would take I'd take homie most days, and I'd scrape the inside of the jar. So on the top of the blade bait, here's where you connect it. So on the head right there at the top, I would just scrape a little out of the inside like you would a peanut butter knife, and then it was giving me that trail down through. And I would do that every 10 or 15 casts. Now, I don't know. Again, how do you quantify, would you have caught those same fish right there without that on there? Those kind of reaction bite baits, I would think that
If it has
probably.
confidence, the answer's clearly you wouldn't have.
You're right.
You're wrong with the rub.
Yep, and so scents are, Rita, scents are a great question.
She typed in also 7-0, which sounds like 5-1.
I got a public service announcement. So this summer we learned, I was fishing with Terry, and Tony Bufa and Brian Hammond always put their scents on their lures, so I tried something new this year. I tried garlic spray.
Oh, the
And since it
pizza
was
shop.
so- I was fishing with Terry, and I was, we're going, is it the garlic? So scents has something to do with it, but as a public service announcement, always put your cap back on the can, because it was low night this summer, and we got knocked over a couple times, so I came home fishing, put the tackle box back in the garage, and I smelled like a pizza regionale for days, because it was like I had pizza cooking. So that's just one other thing. The scents seem to work, but again, it's more confidence in what you're doing than I believe anything else. If you believe that it's working, use it, because
And it's gonna work
help.
better.
Yeah.
It's gonna work better.
The two absolute worst things that can happen with scent is if you use sunscreen, I don't know what the ingredient is, but there's an ingredient in sunscreen that will repel fish. So if you're using sunscreen, get it off your hands before you touch your lures.
You had that jar of stuff right there in the boat, you would tell people, as soon as they got on, I remember in the big boat, you'd be like, did anybody use sunscreen today? And you would say that you either wash your hands with this stuff, or you're not allowed to touch the lures.
Scent away, the same thing hunters use.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
Yep.
Get it washed off with the palm of their hands, because if they touch the rod and then you touch the rod, and you get that on your hands, and then you touch a lure, you've condemned that lure. I've got empirical evidence of that has happened on my boat that I could tell you stories about, but it's too long to tell you. The other bad thing is onions. Garlic is a great scent for attracting fish, but onions will repel fish. Very short story. One night, we were night casting at Larkin Point, this is years and years ago. One customer brought food that had like sub sandwiches that were loaded with onions. Every one of us had a sub sandwich during a break. One person did not have a sandwich. It's the only person that continued to catch fish after that time.
What else was on the sandwich besides onions? I don't, it wasn't just an onion sandwich.
Onions stood out.
I don't want to catch a fish if they don't want to be around me because I had onions or sub. Yeah, oh, bananas. All right, we're gonna do things a little different. We're gonna take a 10-minute break with everybody, and then as soon as we come back, we're gonna talk with Craig and Mike. I'm gonna talk to Chuck. We got a bunch more stuff to do, so let's take 10, and we're gonna leave the live going, everybody. You can still get your comments in, and if you're part of the live audience, we do have a giveaway that Courtney's tracking names, everybody that commented out there on the live stream. So it's 11:01, so 11:10 we'll reconvene. All right, thanks everybody.
Mary, someone that's
God, how you doing? Yeah, happy birthday. Yeah, thank you. Ready to go have donuts? Yeah. Oh, they get that old fast. There's 21.
What's up, buddy? I have to say I do because I know your face, and I'm sure you remember that. I wouldn't have got that name. I wouldn't have got that name. But yes, I do remember. I do. That was a great color. Brown with a white belt. But there was a little bit this earlier this spring by 133. At least that Goldie bite on that particular chicken wrap just was lights out for 3 or 4 days. Like you couldn't put anything else on. Well, you know who messaged me the other day? I'm not sure. Tom Shelter? Yeah. But Artie Walter. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Where is he? I don't know. We messaged me, said I watched your show. It was great. And then Artie worked for the Senegal Road. I saw Dick 2 springs ago. I had my boat out, and he's standing there. And he goes over to give me a hug. I did. That's funny. Oh, really? Yes.
But my you know, he's doing okay. From my dog.
Most of it. I'd like to get out of this. You and I talked about, let's say do fishing much, but it's different. It's different. Really. Yeah, it's a different mindset.
It's one thing, but holy shit.
Joe from Ron? Oh, I know him well. I haven't seen him in a long time. Yep. So, oh yeah. Seen him and Sammy out there all the time. Excuse me again. Is he not? Well, he's old. I remember one day up on St. Pond, when Sammy was told by us, and Sammy says, "You're not getting fish, so I walked on and get out of the way because they were by themselves." That's all. And so they're dealing with it, and when I see what they did, like, they were neutral with the water, and I was getting close, so I had to go around them. And so I went by, and held up this giant brown trout. Do you remember the story about this? You probably never told it. They probably, the two of them just went like this. They held the biggest brown I had ever seen at that point. They hit it in the header. They held it up to show us. It kicked. It bounced out of Joe's hands, hit the gunnel, and it went in the lake. They had just waited. It was 25 pounds.
Well, I never heard this.
No, I don't think they ever really told me. They say until the airplane, that's why they sink like a stone. They looked for 2 days. They wanted they would walk the beach looking for the thing. So I see him. I hadn't seen Joe in 5 years. I see him fishing for steel down at the ball. He pulled me by he's there casting. Hey, how are you? Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh yeah. Courtney. That's right. Yeah. He was a staple for years. She's excited about it. So am I. I mean, you'll be involved in these years. I hope we move so so I hope that that's what I mean. This work, the symmetry is there. Right. Oh yeah. Sure.
Now it's
in this area, so like this. When he works very well, he oh my I never get on my first hand at all. Occasionally when I do, I'll get so I'll sit there and I and I had it, it's just too much quick out of here, like all the way along the side street.
I can stand up and make Gary. On the back, on top of I liked it, but the sound especially. Prices hadn't skyrocketed yet. So I was sales at 34. Same boat this year. Nothing has changed. That's ridiculous. Literally nothing. So I stole my boat at the time. I made more on my trip than I paid for. Okay, sure. I was okay with that. Why not? But if you can find something, that's if you want to get a run, I'm not going to buy it now. Make sure it's 2017 out here. But 2017 is when they changed the transfer. You know, so 100% would be they switched to composite chairs. Yeah, I don't think that's Mike and Craig, good for you. You guys can all, experience. They must have loved it.
Good talking to you.
Good talking to you too. That was Rita's second part of her question. Yeah. All right, everybody,
I'm telling you, let's turn it into a 3-hour show and
Next time.
Okay.
Take it on the water. You could have found some mornings, you could have found Donnie's boat in the dark. You could have just smelled what he's over here. No, he moved on us.
When the summer on east wind, you knew which direction to go.
South wind, get coffee.
That's, I don't mind that though, smelling pump lime out there like, so when I worked at Gator Mountain all those years, it always smelled like burnt Eggo waffles, which I liked. So I'm like, perfect. Where'd these donuts from now? Country Glade, they're all on the main shore. Yeah. And they're open. We're gonna do that in the thank yous. All right, we're back. I'm gonna give you guys this. I want to take a minute. You know, these are two local guys, and not just because they're friends of mine and ours collectively, but anytime somebody local does something on a national scale, I really think that's important to acknowledge it and celebrate it. You know, you guys. It's funny. We. In the outside world, when people talk about walleye fishing, it's all Midwest.
It's Wisconsin and Minnesota. And don't get me wrong, they have incredible fishing, but I'll tell you, even though we don't have as much water as those states do, I'll put our water up against anybody. I mean, we have, and for about 6 different species, you can fish world class in this area. So, so talk to us real quick. First off, let's start with, and I know that there's a lot of tournaments out there anymore, but in the old days, it was the PWT and Fishermen used to sponsor it. Now it's the National Walleye Tour. And how many events did you guys fish? And tell us real quick how it's set up to fish, because it's angler, co-angler, yes?
Yeah, Craig's been doing this for a couple of years. I'll tell the really quick story is that made the decision to retire from law enforcement for 28 years, about this time last year. And what that allowed me to do was it freed up some scheduling. I had 50, 60, 70 hours a week plus. So I was able to commit to Craig, who's been fishing the National Walleye Tour for 2 or 3 years now, that I would commit as his co-angler. So it was about this time last year, I knew I was gonna retire, I committed to Craig, and the day that we could sign for the tournaments, we signed up, which is important because they can fill up, especially on the co-angler side. So, and there's no pairing, so even though we're going as co and pro, I don't fish with him other than practice. So I made the commitment so that Craig would have a travel partner to kind of break down some expenses, and the decision was that I would fish as his co, and we would just room together, travel together. Craig's a school teacher, and the reason 2022 was so important is because it was coming out of COVID, but the breaks lined up with some of the tournaments, so Craig was able to travel. I was able to travel with my new freedom, and the most important thing was that the championship was in Dunkirk.
Dunkirk is,
Dunkirk, New York.
let's make sure we tell everybody, so in case they don't know.
The championship is in Dunkirk, New York. The tournament's
On Lake Erie.
on Lake Erie, which is Craig's backyard. So it was important for me to commit to him to allow him to play his game to get back to Dunkirk. And that was our ticket to the third season, was to fish these tournaments. It's a 4-tournament series, and you have to finish in the top 40 to make it back to the championship.
How many team, it's not teams, how many boats were in the full field for those 4 tournaments?
Yeah, so on average, anywhere from 110 in Detroit to maybe 130 in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, fishing the Mississippi River. We were out in South Dakota and fished Chamberlain, which is the Missouri River system, and then finished in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And so we get a lot of local talent, a lot of local guys that may only fish 1 or 2 events a year that fish in Green Bay. So on average, between 110 and 130.
Wow, so I mean, then you guys had to finish.
So on
in the
average, we had to
40,
average in
really?
the top 40. Yeah,
Okay.
and that was, that was a program that Mike really helped break down is, going back to the question about breaking down water in a new place. We fished 3 out of 4 that we'd never been to before. So showing up at the Detroit River and saying, this is a 1-ounce jig with a piece of plastic, go get in that seam and try to catch that walleye, to that's not working, how do you hand line it? In using, steel line with retractable reels on the side of your boat with a shank and, 2 floating Rapalas 20 and 40 feet apart, trying to catch 5 fish. And we were lucky, Mike and I put together a good enough program with our team, because we did team with a couple of other professionals that were on tour, shared information just like everybody does here. But again, that's a big part of building a program, is putting together a team. But going back to it, understanding water, clarity, understanding electronics, going back to fishing where fish are located rather than just blind casting, was a big part of our program. But more importantly, we found water that was completely mud for 2 or 3 straight days. We had a
Well, let's go tournament by tournament.
Yeah,
First
just
tournament of the
quickly,
year
yeah.
is where?
Detroit River.
That was Detroit River?
March, yep, had snowstorms, had,
That
small
was this
craft
past
advisories.
March,
Yep,
2022.
2022, and had small craft advisories on the river for the first time ever in history.
Close the tournament for a river.
Yeah, which is insane. So, but with the success, of finding those fish, I was the only pro out of the 110 boats that entered to catch a limit of 5 on day 1.
Really?
So which was really kind of a neat accomplishment to say I can, we can fish with these guys. Day 2 had a little bit of issue with some fuel, got a little bit of a late start, but our first drop we catch a 7.5 pounder, put us back on the board. We end up 15th overall, so a great start for the year.
So you finished on the pro side 15.
Yeah, and
in
Mike
that
was-
first tournament. In your first tournament,
Mike had been paired with 2 other pros.
2-day
His
tournaments?
weight, yep, his weight would be added together based on what they got as a team. So it's not an individual like maybe on the bass side.
Right.
It's a team event. So, you know, we don't know who you're gonna get. We might pull Keith Tobias.
And you
or-
finished.
Yeah, my Detroit was a little bit different. I was on the other end of the 15, if you count back to 130. So, yeah, it was a struggle. And no matter what you think you can do, you still have to fish the tournament that day.
And do it.
And it's fishing as a co-angler. It is not 18, by the way. It's a co-angler event. I show up. I'm lucky if I can bring a fishing rod with me. I don't bring any baits. I don't bring anything. You basically jump in a stranger's boat. You hope somebody knows or hope someone knows you. And the longer you're in the tournament series, guys are going to know how you fish and what you're capable of. So your job is either reel fishing or not missing the net. You better be good at it. Period.
So Mike, real quick on that, so how much is being the co-angler when you're in those tournaments, do they either listen to you or let you have some type of input into where to go?
Well, that's a good question, because the answer is I don't give them any input, because then I'm giving them against my team, and any information I give on guy to day one, I cannot give the guy on day two. I've now given that away. And it's not public information, but if I were to tell someone on day one something, it's no longer mine.
Okay.
And anything I learned, and we may have snuck a few things in when we were running dippies out on Erie in the championship. Spoiler alert. I may have let one slide down to 137. I got 8 7 times in a row. We changed their program. So
Okay.
we were able to sneak a few things in. But it was just stuff you knew. I'm not a trolling guy, but there was stuff I learned that week that there's things we were missing and it could have done better.
So first tournament of the year.
So, yeah,
first tournament, good finish.
Great finish.
Not so good finish.
Not so good finish.
That's how you're. So
You get
second
started.
tournament is where?
Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin.
And what?
So-
When was that?
I'm sorry, excuse me, Chamberlain, South Dakota. So this is April break. I'm a school teacher. I teach art over in the school district of Fairport, New York. And with that, I had a break, spring break, and was able to drive out with Mike, get the boat out there 26 hours straight west. Flew back for a few days of work, because we know we can't extend vacations as school teachers. So flew back a couple days, had Mike run me to the airport, which is about 2.5 hours away. Dropped me off, picked me back up later in the week, and we had a tough bite. We found that walleyes do live in 6 inches of water. We found, lighter jigs are good. Mike, was able to do pretty well there. I struggled a little bit. We found some fish in some trees. There's, being a river system, they'll flood, the Missouri River. And we found some suspending fish in trees, and using active target, or forward-facing sonar, we were able to target them with,
I don't know if people really fully grasp what you just said. So that you're fishing, it'd be like fishing the Oneida River.
It'd be like fishing Oneida
And
River
it-
and having
and it
suspended
floods.
cottonwood trees 50 to 60 feet tall over 100 feet of water.
Wow, it's that deep.
Yes.
Had no idea.
It's a reservoir. So
Okay,
they flooded the
okay,
village of
okay.
Brewerton here, it's gone.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so the cool thing was.
And had either of you ever fished there before?
Never seen water as muddy as that in my life.
There you go. That's
So, but finding maps, having a team again, we
Yeah.
had some experience, really helped us. We didn't fare as well. We learned, kind of on the fly, but we were going after, again, those points, those valuable points.
We found the fish to win, the fish just moved on us. We didn't recognize how much they were gonna travel. The river almost fished like it had a tide. If it blew from the south, it would actually push water back up the river, or if it blew from the north, it would push water down the river. There were rock piles exposed that we'd never seen. We'd driven over one day, and the next day they're exposed by 4 feet. I mean, the water would change that much. I'm sure if anyone's seen the pictures from Lake Erie last week, once again, I digress. It's a whole different ballgame. When these fish will move, if water's pushing in, they'll go back up into the shallows and the banks and the brush. And when water starts to recess, they pull back down in the deeper channels and holes. It's these things, if you find a pattern and think you're on something, it was 2 days ago, but you're not. It changes. It's not like a bass that goes to live under a dock. I mean, these fish move, they really do.
And
So
you're
round
finished-
two, we finished, fairly low in the standings, but we got 5 fish per day, which was our goal. And we collected enough points to get to our next event.
Okay,
So
third event
Third
is
event
where?
was going to be in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, so the Mississippi River up in northern Wisconsin. Has anybody ever heard of a willow cat? A willow cat is a small bait fish that looks like and acts like a small baby catfish. It does have spines, it does sting you, you do go numb for about a half hour to 45 minutes if you get stung.
And you know that because?
And I know that because of my experience of fishing with them. But again, this was a local thing, so on Memorial Day weekend, I drove out, had some extra time off. I purchased probably 20 to 30 dozen of these willow cats at $20 a dozen. Some were wild caught, some were farm raised, but that was the kind of thing we had to do our research. How do the locals catch them? It was a different rate, $20 a dozen, so thank God we sold back to the locals at the end. But Mike and I put together a program. My twin brother Ethan flew out and was able to put together a program not even a mile and a half from the launch. And so we were going for points. There were wing dams involved, there were barges that were going through, there were lock systems that we tried to avoid. Some guys got caught.
Prairie du Chien is Mississippi.
This is Mississippi River. But we had a great couple of days. Our one of our teammates was in second after day one, ended up 8th. Cast a pretty good check, and we ended up top 40. So again, going after that top 40 points, we did really well and put together a pretty good
So you
program.
fished the Detroit River, the Missouri River,
and now
the Mississippi.
And having some experience on the St. Lawrence River really helped that.
Okay.
And having some on the lower Niagara also helped with current and seams and fish locations.
So fourth tournament of the season.
Fourth
is the
tournament's
end.
back to Green Bay, Wisconsin, which everybody knows where the Green Bay Packers play.
But now what? Not so much this year, but
So back to Green Bay. This is, Green Bay can be both a trolling bite and or a jigging bite. And, again, utilizing electronics. We spent a lot of time driving around.
Well, hold on now. Before you get there.
Before we get there, we've been there before.
What do you got to do? You both must know at that point? I need to finish X to make it, because
Top
this is
50.
the last one of the year.
Top 50.
Top 50. You both
Yeah,
are thinking.
at that point, I think we're in 30.
Craig was in like 32nd, 28th, something. He had like 12 spots to give up, and I was in the mid-50s. I needed like a top 30 finish to even have a hope, and I don't even think that would have done it. I think I would have had to be like a 20 place and up finish, just mathematically to get there, because of the reason I had a chance is because I fished all 4. There was guys that would beat me that would only fish 1, so the points. So there's no way of knowing just by being here.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'd kind of written the year off with two dumpster finishes in the beginning and a middle dumpster finish at the other one. But I was, let's say, accumulating points as we go, because that's how the seasons run. You don't win it out. If you could go to the championship just by signing up, then that's what you would do.
Right.
You had to fish them all. You had to, travel. You had to put 60,000 miles on Craig's truck this year. And that's how the points got there. And so I knew I had to have, let's call it top 20 finish. And after day one, I was sitting 6th. So
Yeah.
I was pretty happy with
Yeah.
that.
So let's talk about Green Bay,
So we
Wisconsin.
found,
So that's a bay off of
Michigan.
Lake Michigan.
Michigan.
Yep. So very well known for its salmon fishing on the eastern side, and we fished a mud flat down in the south end of the mud because it was most consistent for us. There were some fish that Mike will talk about here in a minute that found, but for us it was again going after those points and trolling inline spinners with worm harnesses was our game. We used Mikey's inline spinners, 2 ounces, 50, 60 back, and we were able to collect some pretty good fish on day one. Had 6 bites, which during the week getting 2 bites a day was kind of a tough. We had a very big aloe spawn, so what's happening was the fish were pretty content with the bait that was in the system.
gorging, yeah.
And made it very difficult to get bites. So we went down and found some fish that had not left the mud yet, and the aloe had moved out, and so we had a chance to actually collect some of those fish. And it was nice to have, again, Mike and my brother out there, my nephew Fisher, we found some pretty good fish. And again, I think we're 36th overall, so it put us in 27th to get into that top 40, so that was a celebration night for sure.
Okay.
Just
so you
piggyback
party that
off-
night. Now you're going.
Yeah, we're headed back home.
theoretically,
We're finally headed home. So the
home
road to
field
Dunkirk
advantage.
is a reality, where I've got friends, family, and where we go and fish at these places, everybody has a buddy that's a local. And so they're getting this local knowledge over and over again of, hey, I was out yesterday, here's where I found them. And sharing information is legal. So, without having local knowledge, without having a bunch of friends in those areas, was, basically doing it on our own. Mike did end up getting paired with a guy who did some trolling. We know how Mike loves to troll, which is never. But giving him an opportunity to compete as a co-angler and learning some of that information also helps me after the tournament. So, he's putting in his time and actually, if anybody knows the name Dwayne Jelm, made some big money this year. I think over 300,000 in boats and collected some pretty big checks, a couple different tournaments. But Mike, if you want to tell quickly how you caught your fish up about 40 to 60 miles north of.
Yeah, so we did a lot. On day one, I grew with Chris Wackler, and we were trolling down the mud. And if you and imagine, you guys had all trolled Oswego or seen Oswego. We were 5-6 boats wide, as far as you can see behind you, as far as you can see in front of you, and they were just doing this. It was combat trolling in the mud. It was combat trolling in the mud. And like I said, trolling's not my favorite thing, so what I'm looking at is I'm watching boards on my side, and it was a really good clue when the board went 30 feet back and 10 feet down, like, that's a fish. So I'm reeling this drum and going, oh, God, There's no more fish that's more important than this fish. Just reel this thing in, reel this, and somehow I was nice enough, willed it in, and it became a 26.5-inch walleye, not a drum. If you describe that board hit, that's what drum do. They sink these things. So as I'm setting the thing back out, it goes out about 8 feet and 10 feet down and 30 feet back she goes. I'm like, it's kind of weird. It's fish. I reel this drum in, 28.5-inch walleye. So we roll into 6th place. So I'm sitting there and we're going high-fiving Chris, and I'm like, hey, you see who's in the boat behind us? Because there's a coin, I fish with the guy. If I go out in like 100th, I go in 100th first tomorrow. I get in that boat, but we'll reverse. So instead of being in the back of the pack, here in the front. So I'm like, hey, who's in the boat behind us? He's like, you drew Dewey. I'm like, great, who's Dewey? The guy that's in first. And you're going jigging.
On the second. So hold on. So the second day of the championship.
No, second greenback.
To get you the championship, you get a guy that's another dirty jigger, and you're like, ha! So, really, what are the chances?
Who's in first place? So yeah, he's like, I'm like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, we're going jigging. So instead of going to the mud 48 miles this way, we go to the rocks 40 miles that way. So if you haven't checked Green Bay, it's about 100 miles north and south plus, and you can't. If you're on one side, you can't see the other. It's a great lake. So it's unbelievable.
So real quick, that's an incredible run. I'm sure he's got a big rig, but I mean, how long does that 40-mile run take?
Depends on the weather and the waves. It can take anywhere between 40 minutes and 4 hours.
And you've got X number of time to run to where you're going, fish, get back within that time.
So that's the best part. It was about 2 to 3 footers. We ran up there, and we were an early but middle early boat pack. So we were second group, and we get up there and blast offs at 7. We're fishing at about 8:30, 8:40 is when we start fishing. Maybe even 8:50. Not really paying attention to it, but it's time to go. And we go about 30 minutes. He's chasing fish around. He's like, just fish, and if I tell you to come up here, then just, if I tell you left or right, just throw it 15 feet left or right or where I throw it. And we're throwing jigging wraps. So we're fishing along, all of a sudden 40 minutes in, he jacks one. I grab the net, and I net it, and life's good, high five, get right back on it. He gets another one about 5 minutes later. I get it with the net, and then the fish move, we chase him around 20 minutes, he gets 2 more. So now in about an hour, he's got 4. I'm like, I didn't miss the net. It's a pretty good day. By the way, our weight for that day counts, so his 4 are my 4, and I didn't miss the net, so I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
So then like another half an hour goes by, and we're up there fishing, he's chasing his fish around, can't get nothing. All of a sudden I'm like, it's weird. Oh, it's weird. I jacked one about 30 a couple, and
30 inches.
Yeah, reel that one in, and then about 5 minutes later did it again. So we had our 6th fish, and up there you got to be careful with it. You can cull, you cannot cull. So you got to make your choice if you're going to keep these fish. And when you get the 10 and the 11 and the last 2 fish, there's no question if you're going to keep a 7-pounder. It's not even up to it.
Right.
We put them away. So we take a look at our watches, and we're like, 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock in the morning.
So we're like, we'll just make a slow roll back, and we're back to the dock a little after 12. We're the first boat back. We don't have to be in like 3 o'clock, but we certify our fish as live because they're not going to weigh us in until the very last, because he went out first, so he's the last person to weigh. We certify our fish as live, and I'm looking in there, and they're all like high-five, and we're not supposed to be excited and tell people to leave that little bit of drama to it. So for the next 4 hours, I got to sit there and wonder what the deal was. And when it came down to it at the very end, we started looking through our fish to figure out, we have 6 in the live well, you can bring 5 to the scales. So he starts looking through, and he's like, can't figure out which one's the little one. I'm like, it's really a good problem to have.
Right.
So finally he decides on one, pulls it out and scales it. I'm like, what? Pulls another one out, and he's like, the little guy we left in the live well was 6'4". Our smallest fish we weighed that day was 6'12". We ended up with just under 42 pounds, all caught jigging. So it took me from 6th place all the way to 1st by about 8 pounds.
And he won that?
He won the tournament.
He won the tournament?
So we both won. So that was Green Bay. That got the points I got to get back to keep fishing at Dunkirk. So,
You said that was all with wraps?
That second day was all with wraps. Day 1 was all with crawler harness. But day 1 sets the tone for day 2. You can't win it on day 1, but you sure can lose it.
Sure can lose it.
Mike, was it actually jigging wraps, or was it a jigging wrap type?
Actually, jigging Rapala. Of all things, those giant fish are eating number 7s.
Really? Those little guys?
the little guys number 7s. And then, like I said, we noticed that we did change color when it was cloudy out. We were using purple dusting, like a painted bait.
Yeah.
And when the sun came out, it was a chrome.
Chrome. Okay, so you make it to the championship.
Yeah, so we make it to the championship, get home to Dunkirk, friends and family, great crew of guys, and our goal was to make the top 10. If anybody knows anything about National Walleye Tour Championship, it's a 3-day event. First day, all 40 boats go out, bring your weight in. I think I had almost 29 pounds on day 1. I was fishing out in front with 2 Dipsy divers, with some lead core that I learned very quickly. I'm not a big proponent, I hate lead core, but when the fish are down 60 and 70 feet over 90, it's a way to get to them. And some snap weights involved there, but and also some torpedo steel as well. We were coming up with a couple different things that we could get to our fish. So targeted some fish out front, found our fish, and ended up getting to day 2. Day 2 we had a little change in weather, things calmed down, and went back to my my worm harness program. So if anybody's into inline weights with worm harnesses, I tie my own, but using some heavy 3-ouncers, we were able to get down to the depths that we needed, and ended up getting around 25 pounds on day 2. So that put us in.
Real quick. So the championship starts fresh, right? Everybody's at 0 on day 1.
0 at day 1.
Okay.
Cumulative weight days 1 and 2 to make the top 10 for day 3. Only the top 10 fish on day 3.
On day 3. So
happy to finish in 8th overall. After day 2, which got me into day 3, it was on the panel of the top 10 in the country at that time for this tournament.
that is just amazing.
Yeah,
that is just amazing to do that with guys. And you said this was your very first
full-time year. Yeah, first full-time year, and we've got a lot of friends and family and sponsors and people like Mike to thank for that. But and I don't want to take too much of every time, but this area, Oneida, the Finger Lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, it's our backyard. And it's, guys like you guys that I've learned from and followed and taken little things from. And, I think education is the huge part of this. And so having the youngest guy here, Sam, I want to give you this hat from our team to you. I think the education that's taking place, with this, I'm blessed to be an educator in the system, but at the same time, everybody's taught me something. And I think, I think as we go through this, if you can take one small thing from everybody that you fish with and apply it to your program, I think that's the benefit of having this friendship, having this following. And, we're going to do the same thing, my little shameless plug. I have a walleye school with Lance Valentine, Ali Shakur, Donnie Rupert from Sunset Bay Walleye Shootout, which we've won back in 17, and Chris McCauley is going to be coming from Michigan. There's a 3-day class. It's at the Niagara Convention Center in February, 16th through the 19th. Okay. I've got some information cards I can pass out. We'll post it again online. But we're going to be educating. It's going to be our big thing. And when we talked about color before, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I have an 8-step system that I follow with Lance Valentine, if you follow him, and color is number 7. So hopefully that perks your interest. I'm going to go do 6 different things before I go to number 7, which is color.
Agreed.
So we'll leave you with that.
Well, guys.
Frankie,
yes.
Were you jerking your lead core or just?
So that's actually a great point. When things get slow for me, I like to change my speed. So I was actually S-turning the boat, and as soon as one would sink and I'd pick up that speed, I'd get a bite. And so that was a big part of it, was changing speed and changing direction of those lures. There's a couple other tricks in there, and using body baits and using those big crankbaits. Sometimes tipping them with a little bit of crawler, sometimes helps a little bit. Give it that meat, going back to your scent thing. There's little things that we kind of did to that. But yes, especially that time of year, I'm doing a lot of movement, a lot of changing, and definitely changing the direction.
How many colors of core did you use?
I had a system where I was actually using 11 colors of core. I buy them in the larger spools, so I use a lot of stealth brain. That just happened to be where the sweet spot was. I do also use a torpedo wire system that I'll add 2 colors of lead to. So another thing to give it that undulation and that whip, which hopefully changes that direction of the bait as well. So there's a couple different things, but obviously on my Dipsies, a lot of worm harnesses on my Dipsies with roller blades. Because we're pulling at 2.122 mile an hour. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. And congratulations on a great year. And something real quick that we didn't say is there is a local tournament out here called Walleye Wednesdays, and it's an evening tournament every Wednesday. And Mike won it this year. You won the championship for the Wednesday night league.
Yeah, we fish every Wednesday from after the opener until usually sometime in August.
We finished early, it was August.
It was August, yeah, we finished a little bit early. They run 5:30 till about the 15-minute mark after sunset. So the evenings kind of change. They run out of the South State Boat Launch in South Bay, or South Shore Boat Launch. And it's usually 20 to 25 boats. It's been a pretty good push.
Yeah. Early in the season, we started out with 30.
Yeah.
It dwindles as we go.
And Vinny and Dave, the two tournament directors, were gonna be here today. I just didn't get it scheduled, and we're gonna do this again, so I'll know more better, you know, I'll know more next time.
Well, yeah, the Walleye Wednesday tournaments, they run, like say, roughly 3 to 3.5 hours every Wednesday night, and then there's a championship at the end. If you fish enough during the week, you can make that Saturday championship. And while we struggled all season long, we saved enough in points, and we're consistent enough that we got invited to the fishing championship. And we knuckled it out by 0.05 of a pound.
Really? It was that close?
It was a half a pound from fourth place to first.
And it was 0.15 of a pound, 0.15 from third, second to first. So we were 0.15 ahead of third,
outstanding.
0.05 ahead of second. So it was down to nothing. I mean, it's.
Well, so the Walleye Wednesday will tie us in with what we're gonna talk about next. And we're gonna go back to a night of lake and talk about a night of lake. But again, let's give these guys a big round of applause. I mean, that's a hell of a season.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Sure, but it's gotta be quick.
Yeah, I just wanted, just to touch base, this kind of goes with everybody. How do you keep your mental game when you're in these tournaments? You know, I mean, the mental part of it is so big.
Yeah, the mental part is all of it. And my job as the co-angler was to get Craig to day one. We built the program and sent it on, and as a co-angler, I just fished. And it shows in some of the struggles I just dealt with. I tried to stay positive, but for Craig, because my job wasn't for me, it was for him.
Not overthinking things and fishing the day. You can't fish history. I love waypoints, but if I could go back and erase every waypoint for practice and just fish the day based on what I've learned in those conditions, I think is what keeps me mentally, moving, and just the anticipation of, the next bite could be the one, and so fishing the day I think was my mentality and just kept me going. Is don't rely on what happened in practice. Let's go with what's going on game.
And trust what you know. You're there for a reason,
Right.
Okay, so next this is exciting. This is one of these big announcements that we had today. One of our fans sent me a message here back in November. And anybody here ever fished the Lions Club Derby opening weekend of walleye season? The Lions Club is a wonderful philanthropic organization. They're a not-for-profit. They've done this for 40-some years, and the group, like unfortunately a lot of civic groups, don't have the people to do things anymore, and so they're not doing the opening weekend tournament. And one of our fans sent me their copy of their press release that they put out back in November saying they weren't going to do it, and it got me thinking. And then Chuck and I started talking one day, and I will announce right now that I am in the final steps. Chuck's organization, his other company, does Chicken Wing Fest in Syracuse. If anybody's ever been down to that, has a history of putting on these big festivals. And I want to announce Walleye Fest. Opening weekend, May 2023, we are going to take over the Derby. We are going to run a 2-day Big Fish Derby, just like the Lions Club did, with some new changes. We are going to have it, the ceremonies will be right across the street at Lighthouse Park right here. We're going to have a band. We're going to have a full-blown concert Saturday night. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have beer tents. We're going to have fun. And we're going to do things that we've always wanted to do, and everything that I've been doing this year, I just assume if I think it's cool, so will everybody else. And that's how I've done everything. And I would come to this today, and I would fish that tournament this spring, because I want to have fun and I want to hang out with all of my fishing friends. And And we're gonna make this awesome.
Make it awesome.
We're gonna make it awesome, and we're gonna do everything. We're gonna have vendors set up. It's gonna be like nothing that this lake's ever seen before, even in year one. And so we got a lot of great people on board already, but that is coming. Opening weekend, May 67th, I believe it is. May 67th. So stay tuned, everybody, for that. That is a huge announcement, and without this guy right here, it couldn't happen. And his extensive knowledge of how to run these things and put it all together. So, thanks, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Big round of applause.
Oh, my goodness.
So Chuck,
Your dad was
Chuck
the best.
growing up here, had used to charter with Tony for years, long before you and I ever knew each other. And it's amazing how many, as we went through this year, it's amazing just how many of those connections there are. Like even this morning, Chuck and I were talking, we know we have a lot of mutual friends, and I'm sure everybody in this room, it wouldn't take too many degrees of separation to connect all of us. And at the very least, because we all love to fish. So, all right, so that's that. All right, I'm trying to get off my list because what time is it? It's late.
11:46.
11:46. So we have 14 minutes to wrap this whole thing up and give away a whole table full of prizes. And I've got two more things. Matt Bain, real quick, before we go any further,
Just do the raffle afterwards, because it's for people in this room.
okay. Real quick though, before I get to Matt, Terry caught the biggest fish of anybody I personally know this year. You got 2 minutes to tell us the big fish story.
The big fish story.
Because it's awesome. You gotta set the whole thing up and tell it. This is 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
Time's
So-
up.
So I was saying earlier, I do a lot of fishing in the summertime on the St. Lawrence River. My wife and I were out fishing one night, just about dark. We were jigging 1 ounce EK jig bucktails on just 15-pound braid with a 15-pound fluoroliter, and we had caught a few nice fish, 28s, a couple of 29s in that range there, and then all of a sudden this fish hit my jig on the drop like a freight train. I thought it was a salmon because we fished close to the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, Lake Ontario. And this fish, I fought this fish for 10 minutes. It was under the boat, above the boat. I thought a big sheep's head. And finally the boat got up next to the boat, and I leaned back on it, and I was using a JT 7.3 Black Rain spinning reel. And my wife
Who was it? I was gonna say, who was in the boat with you?
My wife was with me, yeah. She was out with me. She looked over the side of the boat and she looked back at me like this with her eyes open. She goes, "That's the biggest walleye I've ever seen in my life." So I'm thinking, holy cow, this is one for the book. Because 18 pounds was the biggest walleye, that state record in the St. Lawrence River. And I'm thinking, oh my God. The fish went under the boat. A couple of my neighbors for camps were fishing with us. The fish went underneath the boat and it jumped out of the water on the back side of the boat, and I'm just trying not to hook this fish on the bottom of the boat and break my line. And we finally got the fish back, and now I'm trying to get a look over the boat, and when I looked, it was muskie. And it was just enormous. And I said, I don't know how I'm gonna get this thing in the boat. And finally, when it came up to the boat, she was right there. She scooped with the net, got just the head of the fish in the net. She starts lifting it, and I'm like, no, hang on. And I was able to I threw the rod down the boat, and I had this thing by the tail, and we were able to get it into the boat, and it came off of the hook. And let's say it was a 1 ounce EK jigs bucktail with a Gamakatsu hook in it. It straightened this hook right out, and the hook fell right out of the mouth of this thing. Well, we got a quick measurement on the fish. It was a 51-inch muskie, and we got a quick measurement, got a quick picture. We got it back in the water, and then we stayed with the fish for probably 45 minutes to an hour to get it back, and it finally watched the thing swim away after probably say 45 minutes to an hour. So that was pretty awesome.
Did you have a scale? Was there a scale?
Didn't have a scale. No, I didn't have a scale. We just got a quick measurement on it because I wanted to get it back in the
I
water.
gotta think a 50-inch muskie's gotta go in the 40s somewhere.
Yeah,
I
looking
would think,
at
you
a lot
guys?
of the charts and stuff that they have out there based on length and stuff like that, I figured it had to be somewhere in between that 35 to 40, 42 pounds.
And so you were fishing the JT Outdoors Black Rain 7.3.
Yeah.
How long have you been with JT and how long have you been fishing their rods?
I've been fishing their rods probably now 6-7 years, and just recently this last year I came on board with them.
That's awesome. Now, you guys know each other?
Oh yeah.
You know Matt?
Absolutely, yeah. We've been through a lot of battle together.
So Matt, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
I'm the marketing and staff director for JT Outdoor Products. I've been with them for 7 years, I think. They're a smaller company out of Farmington, Minnesota. The owners engineer all their blanks, and they build everything from log rods through to ice rods and everything in between.
So JT is more than just rods though nowadays.
We are more than rods. We sell everything from reels to hot boxes to baits and plastics and anything you think of in the fishing industry.
Okay, so we this is a big deal. This is a big deal for me.
So I've been looking for local anglers to bring on staff because I feel this area has got some amazing anglers and it's really underappreciated. So I've been following Matt around for a while on social media, and I approached him a couple weeks ago about coming on with us, and we're very excited about it. So we're gonna pair up, release some content, and show the world the fishing out here is pretty epic.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to be joining the JT Outdoors Pro staff. Effective today. So you guys are the first ones to hear this. For me, you talk about things coming together. I said to Courtney, less than a week before I heard from Matt out of the blue, I said, once in my life, I would like someone to come and seek me out for something that I can give to them, and for something I'm doing. And within a week of putting that out to the universe in that way, I get a call from someone that I don't know and said, I've been watching you and we'd like you to come on staff for our company and represent our company. And I could not be happier. I've waited for this day for probably my whole life, in my whole fishing life, in my career, and I've worn a lot of hats. I owned a tackle shop. I've worked in big box retail. I've had charter business. Fishing truly has been my life, and no different than anybody else up here. Just fishing has always been my life, and it's something like some of us have decided to make a living from, and that doesn't always pan out. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. We've known a lot of guides. When you take something you love and you do it for money, it sometimes changes things. And if you'd have talked to me back in 2003, I didn't fish for probably 10 years because I was mad at it. I was mad at it, and I was mad at the people that it made it not fun anymore. And the biggest person of that was me, really, because I was so hard on myself, and the pressure, somebody like a Todd Shelter, somebody like a Tony Buffa, that have been professional guides their whole life. It's different. You can fish every day, but it's different when you're the face and the soul of everything you do. When you're in front of your customers, I don't know how many people have their own businesses, but that's what it is. You're everything to everyone. And so fishing was always, it was your prime focus, but you had to make sure everybody enjoyed themselves and all of those other things. And a lot of people this year have asked me, dude, why do you go out every day? Why do you? Because I can't wait. Because I can't wait every morning when I get up. And now that this has happened, I can't wait to go fishing with everybody every day. Like, I'm guiding thousands of people a day for free, and it's just fun. And I get to talk and we get to share. And I couldn't be happier with where we're gonna go and what we're gonna do personally and collectively. I mean, everybody in this room, this is the first time any of this has ever happened for us. And someday soon, who knows where this is gonna go, but everyone's gonna be like, I was at the first one, I'm gonna say that because I'm here too. I'm at the first one. And this is just awesome. And a lot of great things have happened in 22. We didn't get a chance today to talk about what we're looking forward to in 23. We have a ton of stuff. We have a lot of people to thank. What do we have for time? 5 minutes? I told everybody we would turn it off at noon, and we will. We'll do all of the giveaways here, and I'll have everything posted shortly when we stop. Or maybe we'll just leave it running and we'll go right to doing the giveaways. But from the bottom of my heart to everybody here in this room, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll do a real quick last call. We'll take 5 minutes and then we'll start doing raffles. If anybody wants a raffle ticket still to get in, we have, and again, I want to thank, Chuck Orlando. I want to thank JT Outdoors, the Pier, Limp Lizard, Apisa Regional for donating, Tony Buffa, all my guys up here, John Lutz for the incredibly generous donation of the drift boat trip. And please, for $10, you'll never get a cheaper drift boat trip with a nicer guy. So make sure you get your tickets and get on this. And we're gonna start drawing. I just got to catch my breath, and then we'll finish this out strong. Thank you again, everybody.
Babe.
Shouldn't we finish it with a keep your tip up?
Well, yeah, I was wondering, what are you guys doing? I said it, jeez.
Do it quick, your battery's about to die.
On the phone?
Uh-huh.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Keep your tip up!